So here we are. Welcome along to the How to Cut It podcast. We are coming live from Grid Studios here in London, and I'm delighted to have sat in front of us three delightful people, Aoife, Annie, and Danny. Welcome along to the How to Cut It podcast, the three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Where do we kick off? Well, Danny, you're the co-founder of Grid Studios. What is Grid Studios?
Grid Studios, it is a space born out of a need we found when we've been creating our own hair content. So what we find is when we go into salons, it might not be big enough. You might get mismatched lighting, which is a real problem for shooting colour. And in studios, you'll go in there and it won't have a backwash. There'll be nothing you need for hairdressers. So there'll be no styling stations, nothing like that. So we've built a hybrid space that kind of covers off all those bits.
And you've done it brilliantly well. I mean, it's just so cool. So we'll go much deeper into that. So let's just learn about your roles now. So maybe we could kick off, Aoife. What's your role here?
So I'm the digital creative here. So I do all things creative, from photography and videography to design and eventually some editing as well.
Cool. And Annie?
I am the social media manager here at Grid. So I do all of our socials, managing the socials as well as content creation, and then we do the same for clients and hairdressers that come in as well.
Cool. And maybe we can get a little bit of stuff about content creation as we go into this as well, because I'm sure our listeners always like a bit of content creation. And what I would then maybe just ask yourself then, Danny, is what has led you to do this, and what's that journey been like?
It's been a reasonably long journey. I've been speaking to, obviously, my business partner, Ben and Carla. We've been working in this field for a long time. Ben and I have been working together about, 18 years now. He's a photographer. I technically do video, but I do photography, a bit of everything. And then as we started working, a long time ago, I worked at Treatwell as an editor. And they kind of got me in when they did a co-branded thing with Weller. And I met Suze at Weller. So she's been a massive help. And we've been working with Weller for a long time. Through there, I've met Jordana, a lot of their Weller guest artists as well. So it was really just conversations between all of us that kind of led us to this point where we love creating this sort of content. We've been doing it a long time. Is there a better way we can make it easier for everybody and make it more accessible for hairdressers as well?
Why do you think then, Aoife, that we need to have a space like this? Why can't we just use a regular photo studio?
I think really Grid allows you to strip it right back to the basics, and it gives you everything you need off the bat, and then you can take it from there. You can adapt your content and what you do with lighting that you can trust, with a space that you can trust, with, stations if it's hairstyling that you're doing, or with the team, with photographers you can trust, with backdrops that are going to work, and everything's going to suit you regardless of what it is that you do as a creator.
And Annie, what's the reaction of people coming into the studio? How do they react when they look at the space and they think, what do you get back from them?
We've been so lucky. Everyone's been so positive when they come in the space. I think a lot of people are really surprised by how big it is and how versatile it is, especially when we've been hosting our content days here. So we've had stylists and barbers and hairdressers coming in and sort of servicing clients or models even, and they've just loved working with the team and I guess enjoying the versatility that they get here.
And how about the content that they can create from being in here? Annie, do you find that they're capturing lots of social worthy content as well?
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, especially with the lights here, it just makes everything so much easier and more accessible for people. So I think they've just enjoyed coming into a creative space where they can also rely on us as well for, advice and support, but also get those creative juices flowing. And yeah.
And Danny, you kind of touched upon it, the sort of unique features, the lighting, but maybe you could just go down a little bit deeper into those unique features and actually explain to our listener that, what does make it really unique?
This lighting setup is custom made for us. There isn't anything that exists like this. We work with Lutron, the company that made the lights, on very specific requirements about color temperature and the way the color temperature moves through the day. So we've got south-facing windows here, which is really nice. So you get beautiful natural daylight all day long. And the color temperature of lights changes as the sun moves through the sky. So whenever you're shooting color, especially, you get a consistent color temperature, which is one of the biggest problems. One of the biggest things we got in our market research was that getting consistent color throughout space was very, very important. Also, the lights are very evenly spaced, so it's quite an even light throughout. So when you're moving your camera around, you don't need to worry about resetting your camera or doing different exposures. You know it's going to be a really nice, soft, even light wherever you are, which makes shooting on your phone really, really easy. Also, it doesn't flicker at any frame rate. That's another thing we tested.
Okay.
Because that was another big problem people kept coming up against. They'd go to a space, it'd have poor LED lighting and the phones would flicker and it'd look horrible.
And Aoife, what would you say is the biggest in terms of what the content's being used for? What are most of the people coming into the studio actually using this space for?
Creating hair content. It is mostly used by hairdressers and stylists, and for them to create that kind of content. And we do find that because the space is designed with them in mind, that it suits what they need, and it tends to be, at the moment, those people that we have in.
And in terms of the amenities in here, what would you say about the amenities that we've got going on in here? I've got a name block again.
Annie.
Annie. Sorry. Annie.
Wow. It's there's so much to talk about, I feel like. I mean, anything from, the lighting and the space and how diverse it is, so people can do so many different things. They can come in for a day and they can shoot in sort of different parts of the space, and they get almost like a whole month's worth of content, which looks like completely different shoots while they're here. But, we also have the full shoot bathroom, so people can come in and shoot, bathroom style content as well, a little bit more sort of, I guess, like lifestyle-esque content. And we obviously also have our coffee bar here behind us. So, it gives people that really great client or kind of user experience in the space as well.
So in terms of somebody coming here, Danny, and they want to book this space, how does that process look and how can that work? I mean, because I'm thinking collections come to mind, awards. So let's just use me as an example. I'm going to be creating a collection.
Yeah.
How does that start and how does that work?
So what we would do, we'd try and understand what you wanted to do on the day, kind of what sort of step you would need. Because we have 6 styling stations, we don't necessarily need to have them all out. We can have some out, like all of them out. It can be really versatile like that. We have cords that come down from the ceiling, so everything's powered really well. So what we do, we kind of talk through kind of what you needed and then work out what setup we could do. We can do like mini set builds if you want to do that. We can shoot in our courtyard. We can bring lots of different backdrops. We've got really good partnerships with some of the lighting companies, so getting like specific kitting is really good as well. So you can just use the lighting we've got. We're going to build stuff and do more interesting bits. We can bring all that in.
And how soon would somebody work with yourself? So you're doing the photo shoot? Or
we can do the photos. It depends. Some people bring their own photographers. We're more than happy to rent out the space like that. But obviously, we're a production company ourselves, so we do like to create the content.
So effectively, what we've got here, then, Aoife, is a kind of blank sort of space, canvas of what we do, and it's how we utilize this space. What is the business model to this, if you don't mind me asking? Does this work around a membership model? Does it work on daily rates?
Yes to everything.
Right, okay. So let's start on the membership. Who wants to sort of drive me on that one?
Yeah, I mean, so our membership is probably one of the core offerings that we have here. It's really focused around that content creation aspect that we spoke about. That seems to be what people have been most excited about, I guess, coming in and using the space for. Like Aoife said, we've got hairdressers, barbers, stylists coming in, and the space really is tailored for them. So that's the way we've set up our membership. It's basically, it's based around our content days. So it depends on how often they'd like to come in and create content with us, really. But as part of that, they also get access to sort of networking and community events that we host here as well. And obviously have access to discounts on space hire and things like that as well.
And community events. Are you building a community around here, Aoife? What's going on here?
That's the plan.
Okay, so what when you say that's the plan, how do you want this community to grow and look?
We want it to grow organically and as creatively as it will naturally sort of develop. But the more hairdressers we work with, barbers and stylists, as well as other creators, photographers as well, and makeup artists. We've had some makeup artists join our content days. Anybody that's wanting to create content and wanting to use the space and we will eventually have a bank of people that we trust, that we work with, and we can say, we know someone for that, or like recommend makeup artists, stylists.
So it's almost like you can almost be that kind of middle.
Yeah, so it's,
you can, like, again, I'm going to do a shoot. Do you have a photographer in mind?
Exactly
do you
that.
have somebody that can do editing? You can do all this sort of place of this.
Yes.
Who are some of the people that you've worked with, Danny, at the moment in terms of coming into the studio?
So we've had Jordana in a few times. We have Guy.
Jordana Cabela.
Jordana Cabela, yeah. So she's our creative director, and she's put a lot of effort into this with us, setting up all the hairdressing side of it. I'm not a hairdresser myself, we're content creators. So Jordana's brought a lot of her hairdressing knowledge to the thing.
Is this a first of its kind?
It is, as far as we know, yeah. There are a few spaces that are similar, but they're more freelance salons than they are studios. That's kind of where our membership would differ to somewhere like Hunter Collective, for instance. Whereas you're there somewhere you go every day and you work with your clients. We're somewhere you bring your clients for one day, and then you'd be here to create content. You'd have me and Annie here shooting photography and film, and then you'd be able to capture your own content as well. So it kind of differs like that.
And what do you say to the sort of location, Aoife? You know, here we are, Old Street in London. How's that work for people coming to here? The accessibility, talk us around
Fantastically. And it's often one of the things that most people mention after they say it's bigger than I thought. They say it's in a great location. We've got Old Street like 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
Barbican and Farringdon. So we're in a great spot to sort of be well connected to all directions.
So you could effectively, as a hairdresser, come here with your models and everything else can be in place.
Exactly what the content days are for. You can come down with your models. We're here to shoot. We're here to give you lots of content, and you can get lots and lots of stuff out of the day.
So again, you've talked about a little bit about the feedback. Are you going to step away as well from maybe just hairdressing, or are you going to keep to the niche of hair and beauty?
We do have some other people coming. We've had Zara come in. We've had Champion come in. They've used it as a production base. Because it's in such a good location, a lot of time they want to come here and they'll shoot in the local area because it's really nice around here. But yeah, we specialise in creating that sort of content. We do have clients outside of hair, but generally they're more location-based clients. We've set this up to make hair content really well. So we want to really concentrate on building out our community and making sure everyone's getting the most out of it.
And what about, Annie, when it comes to backdrops and, you know, getting different looks and feels? Do we have different backdrops, different settings? Maybe you could share that.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a whole range of different backdrops, coloramas, that kind of thing as well. But obviously we have all the white walls, we have the coffee bar, we have all these aspects that you can kind of choose to incorporate into your shoots as well, depending on sort of the aesthetic that you're looking for.
And what about our listener who wants to maybe just think, I want to see some of the work that's been done at Grid Studios? Aoife, where would we best go for checking out maybe some images, an idea for our listener to go and have a look at what's going on here?
I think a great place to start would be our Instagram, because we keep it updated with our content days, with everything that we're sort of getting up to, but as well the website. We also, you know...
So tell us, the website is at gridstudios.com?
It is, yeah. Nice and easy.
It always challenges, and our Instagram handle is
Grid Studios London.
Okay, so that's always a good place for people to go and have a look. Right, I'm going to get to the elephant in the room. Cost, yes. Right, because, you know, somebody may be thinking, I know lots of people in the hair community who want to create collections. They want to create content. And I'm talking now collections, award-winning collections. What kind of guide of pricing does it entail to come into this studio? Could you share some of the sort of numbers that you know are being used at the moment? Yes.
So generally we go out at $850 a day for photography. It'll be $960 a day to rent the studio, but we do like bundled rates. So if you wanted to just rent the studio, it's like the most it'll ever be is $960. If it's like an editorial rate, it's $750. So we can kind of work down from there depending on what sort of stuff you want to shoot. If you want us to come with it, obviously we have lighting in-house, so we can save quite a lot on cost just because it's pre-lit. One of the big costs we found when we were shooting collections before is we'd have to go into a studio and then we spend £1,000 on lighting, which is a big cost for anybody.
And that's what I love about this whole idea. It's you are just taking a whole space with beautiful lighting. And what about video content? Annie, maybe you could share on some of the video content. Are we seeing the video content being created here in Grid Studios?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we create predominantly video content, I would say, a lot of the time, especially when it comes to social. So any of our sort of production packages and things like that, we always include a whole kind of host of social media content as well to give people that kind of like comprehensive approach or a comprehensive output, I guess, from any shoot that they do. So that includes the content days as well. So on our socials, you can see a whole range of different video content that we do. But Danny obviously also does, and Aoife does a whole range of, I guess, more produced, like manicured video content.
And stuff like that.
Membership. How does that look? Are you doing membership as yet?
Yes. So we have been testing this on our content days. So the membership is for the content days. It's £400 a day. And you get one of 4 stations. With that included is me shooting or Ben shooting photography and film, like professionally, all lit on the backdrops like you like. Annie shooting phone content and directing you with your own models and stuff like that, so on hand to help. And then we give you all the content at the end of the day with some edited photos. So generally you'll get a lot of footage out of one day, a lot of film, a lot of photography.
Who's using that kind of package? What type of person is coming along and using that?
Generally, it's people who just want to create more content to promote their business. So it's like hairdressers that are doing well, that know what sort of style they want to do, and they want to explore some ideas or test some things, or they work with models already. So that is, they bring, that's kind of what we've had so far, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think because they can using the space here sort of negates a lot of the challenges when it comes to shooting in salon. I think it gives them the opportunity to do anything from kind of like their everyday, cuts, colors, styling, like their bread and butter essentially. But they can also come in, and we had someone at our last content day do really amazing, really creative, like avant-garde styling. Because again, she doesn't get to do that in salon, and unless she's kind of doing it for a show or something like that, those opportunities I think can be sort of hard to come by sometimes.
And creating content is such a big part now, isn't it? That actually these content days are great. But so if I come in again, Annie, and you're kind of capturing images in the background, and what sort of stuff have you captured, and what do you give?
I mean, wow. We capture, as you mentioned, we're shooting on our office iPhone. So you'll get a whole lot of, I guess, social-led videography. I mean, we do some photography as well, but I think the video is the hardest thing to capture. So we do encourage people to create their own content while they're here, but I'll be shooting both sort of up close details, things like that, and sort of documenting the process of while they're doing what they're doing. But they will also get a lot of BTS content and things like that while they're here as well.
And how's it looking working with brands then, Aoife? Are you working with leading hair care brands?
Yeah, Weller is one of our biggest clients. We've also done work with Juve. And, we've had other brand managers and representatives, PRs and things from other brands to come and see the space. And before I came to Grid, I was working in hairdressing journalism. So I was at Trade Press. So I have, some familiar faces in the industry anyway. Yeah. So when I've met them since, I've told them about the space, and I've told them, about the features and everything of the space, and said, come down, have a look. So we've had various other people come in and have a look around and, plan for 2025.
What are you finding in terms of the feedback that you're getting then, Danny? Have you had anything where people have maybe said, look, you could do this with a space? Or was it all just positive? What are you getting? What are you hearing back?
It's been generally very positive. What we've done recently is we've put backdrops up outside, because we know hairdressers love to shoot in like bright natural daylight.
Is that something you've learned as you've sort of gone along here? Yes,
it is, yeah. And we've also not put in as many stations out on the content day to give people a bit more room to breathe, and it's just a bit nicer environment for people to create in. So we do actively take feedback on for our hairdressers that come through, just to make sure they've got everything they need. We've also bought in a lot of stuff. So every time someone comes in, like, oh, have you got this? And then we'll get it for next time. So there's a lot of getting our own different lighting in, getting all the foils and the brushes and stuff like that. So we're just collecting things slowly that will make everyone's experience a bit nicer.
I think, here we are doing a podcast and creating that. And also you mentioned about doing events, because it is an incredibly great space that you can do events. Who can maybe share a little bit about the potential of an event being held in here?
So we've got a really exciting event with Leaf Scissors coming up where they're going to do some like live demos and some Instagram selling. They're working with this other company called, I think they're called Seal. So that's going to be really interesting. They're going to have 3 stations set up in here, a DJ outside with music and food and drinks. So there's going to be about 200 people come through, I think, and just see what's going on. But we do a fair amount of events like that. We also do like sit downs where people can watch films and things like that. So it's, again, we're just trying to keep it really versatile and have lots of different people come in.
What happens if people, again, there'll be some of our listeners, Aoife, that maybe think, oh, this space is just, am I good enough to come into this space? What would you say to that?
Absolutely. And I think that is a touch point that we try to make the content we create for people and the content that people create for themselves. We try to make that the goal and the appearance of everything we create. We don't want to make it look too polished or too, difficult to achieve. Because at the end of the day, people that are creating their own content are looking for the easy way to do it. And in terms of being good enough to do it, if you're good enough and you're in the mindset to create content, you're good enough and in the right mindset to come and use the space.
Yeah, and that's what I like, because I think there are a lot of people that are looking to start out on their journey to creating some imagery, that is a reflection of them. And that's a question that I kind of hear, is certainly towards an award entering awards.
Yeah.
Can you make this affordable for people?
Definitely. That is one of the key goals we had when we started. That's why the memberships are priced like they are. You get everything you would get in a studio, but for a lot less price. So we want to make it accessible. We always work with people as well. If they've got a budget in mind, we'll tell them what they can do with that budget. We want people in, we want people shooting. We don't want to be like saying, oh, well, no, you can't afford it, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't bother. We'll always find a solution with anyone who comes in.
And that's what has come through with you all from meeting you right from the very start, is you're nice people. And I think you want to make this work. And I think you're a new breed in the industry and what you're doing. And I love that. And I love anybody that is doing something different. But I think that is what I think is really important, that you're adaptable. Because what I don't want our listener to think is, oh, this is out of reach for me. It's, Old Street in London. It's super expensive all down there. It's very London. This is open to
everybody.
Everyone, definitely.
And while we got you here, Annie, you talk about social content. You're very much about social content. What's a little takeaway that you could give in anybody that's creating content on their phone, because you're creating in here? Do you have any little snips or tips that you could just share on creating great content, particularly aimed at the hairstylists, colourists?
I think when it comes to creating great content, I think it looks different for everyone. I think you need to find what works for you and what feels really authentic to you as well, because that's always going to come across on camera for people. And I think that's how you build an engaged audience and a community like we're trying to do here, is because people want to see that real kind of element with people. So I think it's about, finding something that works for you, that speaks to you so you enjoy it as well.
Yeah. And Aoife, somebody is now, we've got their attention. They want to get involved. Mm-hmm. They want to get in here, have a look around. What's the next steps? How do they do that? What should they do?
Email us. Email Danny, and he can, sort it out basically. But if people are in the area and they know they're around, come in for a coffee. We have great coffee and a great barista. Yeah,
it is, because actually a little part of the business, which I think is really cool. That I guess, we have a coffee shop that serves a passing public who can. Does this actually open up to a coffee shop as well, or does this purely remain?
So inside purely remains studio, outside with courtyard. So it's got nice seating. We've literally just covered it this weekend, so it's now set for winter. We're going to get some lighting out there so people can come and sit outside and enjoy coffee. We also get quite a lot of people like popping their head round and seeing what we're doing. So we've had a few clients just come by to get a coffee and then stay for some photography, which has been really good.
It's definitely a look in and see what's going on in their space. I'm even seeing that as people are passing by right now. How does that work, though, if you've got a coffee, being served here and you're doing film content or a podcast? do you have to sometimes close down the coffee shop?
We do, yes. It's part and parcel of, we're a studio, first of all, so if the cafe needs to close, the cafe needs to close. We're not too worried. We want to make sure the people inside the studio who are renting the space and doing their work they're getting the best out of it.
What's the biggest message that you want to give to our listener today?
It's accessible. Just if you've got a project in mind, if you've got anything you'd like to try, just ask us and we'll work something out.
Are you happy to share your email, by the way?
Of course, yeah. It's Danny, DANNY @gridstudios.com.
Okay, we'll put all the links into the show notes. So it's accessible, and I think that's really exciting. What about the future plans for Grid Studios?
We don't want this to be the last one.
Ooh.
We want to open more around the country, maybe one in Manchester, one in Edinburgh, the two cities we've got in mind at the moment. But if we can get our membership working well here, which I think it's going to, then we want to expand and make sure this can go further than just London.
And is there a timescale on this?
As quickly as possible, 18 months, hopefully.
And how do you feel, as we come towards the end here, how do you feel things have worked so far? How long has this been open now?
About 6 months.
We opened at the beginning of June.
Wow, okay. So the 6 months, how would you assess this is sort of rolling?
It has been a learning curve about what the space performs at its best with. So we've rejigged our memberships a few times. We've changed some of the studio rental prices and kind of what we get in. But I think now we're finally getting to something that really works for everybody. So it's been like learning, and now we're going to push and try and get more people in. And
obviously, Eva, you just saying you were at Hey Shay, did you say? Were you?
I was a creative head.
A creative, of course you was. Now I know it all clicks in. How do you feel the creative, like media brands? Are you still a creative head?
No, I'm full time here.
You're full time here. How do you feel it works for media brands to come in? Are they kind of taking this space? Are they looking and thinking, yeah, we could work with this?
Creative Head actually used the space a few months back for a prep day for a cover shoot. So it's perfect for that kind of thing, for brands to use, for a cover shoot for a magazine, or for, trade press to shoot if they wish to do a spread in the magazine. It's great to shoot at. It's also great to do, the prep day and we have the backwash here as well.
How did all your paths meet, and how did you all get involved in this?
So I actually met Aoife through Jenny, who was the producer on this shoot, on the Creative Head cover shoot. So she put Aoife forward to me, and I was like, yep, she got the job in the room. And then Annie applied for the job when we needed to do social media well. And
so that's, where do you come from then, Annie, in terms of social media? What's your background?
So I started out, I've always kind of worked within the creative agency realm back in Australia. I'm from Melbourne. I've worked on, anything from really small boutique agencies up to bigger and more established agencies. And then I moved over to the UK about 2.5 years ago. And here I am.
Yeah, well, in a good, brilliant creatives vibe, isn't it? I think that's what you get in London, is like nowhere else. And Danny, what about you? Where's your background?
So I worked in advertising for years as an art director and a producer. And then, as I said, when I went freelance, I went to Treatwell, and then I set up my first company, Fondness. So Fondness was a production company, and we kind of ended up specialising in hair as I got to know Weller and got to know all the guys there, and we just started doing hair content. And then working with all the guys, we've just kind of taken it from there. Now Fondness has become Grid Productions, so it's wrapped up with the studio, so we can deliver everything you would need. Where's
Grid Studios? Where's that name come from then, Grid? I have a good idea.
Grid.
But
yeah, so Grid was actually Jordana's idea. We were speaking about longevity of content and about keeping it out there.
Yeah.
So it's about being on the grid, like on the Instagram grid. So that's kind of where it comes from.
It is cool. And in terms of like the future, here we go, we're sort of up and running. You were at Salon International. How was that experience? Were you all at Salon?
We were all there, yeah.
How did that go, and what was the feedback that you were getting there, and what did you do at Salon International? I'll ask you that, Aoife.
Yeah, it was great. It was, funnily enough, my first salon. But no, it was great. The amount of people that we had go past just with interest alone, to ask questions, to take a bag, take our Danny's business cards, and we also had a station set up. So there was some live hair also going on, but we also had a shoot space set up. So people could come by and have headshots.
It did look really cool, by the way, and there's so much energy. There was a lot of energy going on. And just tell our listeners, I know we're talking to the three of you about bringing a How to Cut It podcast live event and bringing some of our community here as well, because I think it'd be a great way to do that. So again, just to our listener, just keep a listen out on that. We'll be keeping you up on
something going.
We've recorded this in film as well, and Danny and the team have kindly let us come in, and a little partnership that's now growing with them here at Grid Studios. Before we sort of sign out, and a big part of it is the features, and we've talked a little bit about lighting. Maybe you could just share with me a bit deeper about the features in the space.
Right, so 3.5 metre high ceilings, really good for getting big lights up, proper campaign-worthy lights up. With a backwash, you can actually get cameras around that's lit really well. With a shoot shower that you can also get lights in again, so you can light that and make it look really nice. We've got a fully kitted out colour area just behind us. So you've got all your gowns.
Drinks, chocolate.
Oh, drinks and chocolate, obviously, for the hungry people.
Guaranteed.
And then we've got, as you know, we've got a really nice cafe, so everyone in here will be fed and...
Why is that ceiling height? What's the importance in that, Danny?
If you're shooting proper photography, you need height to get the lights up and above people, especially for hair, because you want a hair light. That's what makes it look really nice. That's where you get the glossy shine from. If the lights are too low, it looks too front on. Yeah. And it makes it a bit harsh. So you just need height. The more height you've got, usually the better, because you can get more and more lights up and above people.
And Aoife, the basins, again, why is that important? Why is it important, the shower? But what's the relevance to that?
It's a massive part of what we're able to offer here, because like talking about earlier on, in salons, shooting in salon spaces, often the backwashes might be in like a separate room, a smaller space, or a space that you can't really access to film in, or it's not really lit for filming. So the ability to have the backwash where it is and as it is in this space just opens up the possibilities for people to use. And it means as well that we're also able to cover it as and when people want to use the space, hide the space out for events or anything else. Do have a plinth that covers it.
It's pretty special. I love it. I'm in love with the space. It feels very comfortable, and I think that's probably because of all of you as a team make it feel a really comfortable space, and that's important. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dom, for coming.
Danny, thank you. Ben.